Moving on, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has indicated that vaccine passports could become mandatory across a wide range of settings, including festivals, sport matches and nightclubs. He has also confirmed that plans to lift all isolation rules for those who have been fully vaccinated are on track to happen in just over 2 weeks' time.
Yes, but when the Prime Minister was asked if people that had refused a vaccine would be excluded from places such as airports and nightclubs, he responded that getting a jab would, quote, help you, not hinder you. So a bit evasive on that question. Cabinet Minister, or Office Minister Michael Gove, of course, said a few days ago that those who don't get the jab are selfish. Well, we're now joined live in the studio by Laurence Fox. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm going to guess that you don't agree with the vaccine passport, so I think that's a safe guess to make. But can they be ever legitimate, or are you completely ideologically opposed to them?
I'm opposed to them because they are massively discriminatory and they change the relationship between the citizen and the state. So in order to go about your everyday life, you're going to be mandated to have a vaccination. And that means, you know, that sets a dreadful precedent. Where does that finish? You know, do you get to 25 years old and the state suddenly go, well, you don't need both kidneys, we're going to have one of them and give them to someone else? Where does it stop?
I suppose there are some elements in life that we've discussed for many years in this country that the government does mandate certain wearing of things. I don't know, in hospitals, some people have to wear masks, for example. There was a big discussion a couple of years ago as to whether teachers should be allowed to wear face coverings or not for religious purposes. I mean, I suppose we do sometimes have these discussions about the state mandating in certain circumstances people changing how they act or what they do.
Yes, indeed, but in this instance there's been no debate whatsoever, and anyone who disagrees has just been smeared and called selfish by Michael Gove or nuts by Boris. And, you know, we just need a full and open debate about it. I respect people's right to have a different view to mine.
But do you... So, obviously, Michael Gove said it's selfish to not get double jabbed, and there are a small proportion of people, sizable, but small proportion who don't want to get jabbed for various reasons. I mean, what would you say to those people? Of course, people have the right not to get jabbed, but objectively, it can be a bit selfish, surely.
Well, I think surely isn't Michael Gove selfish for getting jabbed? I mean, do you think he was going, yes, I really want to serve other people, or do you think he was going, I don't want to get the virus and therefore I'm going to get a jab? It's a selfish act in itself. It's just we're twisting it round. The government have misled, moved the goalposts so many times and actually outright lied in the case of the vaccines minister. So you can understand why there are people around this country who are very nervous and wary and would like to just take a bit of time.
Do you think the reason why this is being discussed, it seems to be that all of the commentary around the idea that we may introduce vaccine passports is because there's a lower uptake amongst young people and in certain groups. Particularly that's what we saw with social care staff, that these people have been having a lower than average uptake of the vaccine, and so these measures have been brought in. If we had a higher uptake voluntarily across the country, perhaps this wouldn't be discussed in this way. What's your view on that?
I think, again, it's a huge mistake because they're going to find in Cornwall, I hear, that they don't want to make a fuss, the care home staff who don't want to be vaccinated and provide a vaccine passport to work, that they're just going to walk out of work. So you're going to have a lot of elderly and vulnerable people, you know, the ones we've been trying to protect with no one to look after them.
But surely the counter-argument to that is, well, those vulnerable people, they're trying to be protected because when they get the virus, if they were to get the virus, then they would have a very high chance of having a severe disease and perhaps death. So actually the fundamental point is the way to protect those people is to get everybody jabbed.
What about natural immunity? Natural immunity is just as good as a jab immunity, actually better.
But
so why can't they?
But it really isn't, is it?
Is it really not?
No, because on top of natural immunity, your vaccine will protect you by up to 95% against hospitalisation. There are lots of cases of people, not only in their 80s, but people in their late 40s. There are some cases, I mean, admittedly very few, but some people in their 20s have been hospitalised with this virus as a result of their natural immunity. Now, there's no way of knowing who's going to be really seriously affected by this virus, and getting that vaccine massively reduces your chance of going to hospital.
What about normal flu? So if you've got normal flu as a care home worker and you walk into a care home and you give someone normal, nasty influenza, another airborne respiratory virus, which is very bad for old people, do they need a passport for that too?
Well, normal flu doesn't kill or have the potential to kill
it kills
hundreds
lots
of thousands of people. I mean, there's a difference because flu is endemic, whereas this has been a pandemic. Hopefully, we're going to reach the stage where COVID becomes endemic in the country and we don't need to have all of these non-pharmaceutical interventions. But while it is still in this pandemic stage, while there is still so many people under such risk, while the NHS has this risk of actually cancelling non-COVID services, as we've seen horrifically over the last year, the number of cancer diagnoses that have gone missed, I think, is appalling. That's because we've been at risk of overwhelming those health services, becoming the COVID health service rather than the National Health Service. Surely there are some of these risks that we really do need to take seriously.
The fear that's been generated by this government is absolutely disproportionate to the risk that this virus causes young people particularly. And anyway, I'm trying to bring those two sides together, not further apart.
Are you trying to bring these sides together, though? Because I've seen what you've tweeted about vaccines in the past. You've used the word vaccine in a quote as if this isn't a real vaccine. You've said that these haven't passed their trials when they have passed their phase 3 clinical trials. You've said that young people shouldn't get the vaccine when really we know that in order to reach herd immunity, young people have to get this vaccine. Aren't you part of the problem here?
Should I get a Tom Harwood tweet approval passport as well? Would that help?
I think everyone should, really. I mean, that would really help.
I feel for you as a person, because as a young man, you're very disproportionately worried about this thing that's not going to do you any harm. So, you know, and also you constantly yourself tweet the endlessly follow the government line, and, you know, journalism is about exploring ideas.
I've been deeply critical of this government. I think they were slow to introduce masks. I think that they have slowed down on the vaccine rollout. I think there have been many, many missteps that this government have taken, and they've been weak on the borders. So I have not been at all recalcitrant in my criticism of the government. But I do think that there is a real, genuine problem when people with large followings tweet out to many, many people that they shouldn't take this vaccine, when we know the hell that this country has been through for the last year and a half. The way out of this is the vaccine. And potentially it would be a good thing if you were to tell your legions of followers to actually get the jab. Not to coerce them, not to force them, but to say that it's actually a good thing to get vaccinated.
I will have my team run my next set of tweets past you, Tom, and you can exercise my freedom of speech for me. Is that what you're after? Because I'm more than happy to do that if you'd like.
Well, I'm not trying to.
You're asking me to tweet what your opinion, and I'm not going to.
Well, I'm asking you why you haven't been tweeting that. I'm asking, actually, more than that, why you seem to have been dissuading people from getting this vaccine.
Because I don't want a two-tiered society. I don't want a society where you're mandated by the government to take medicine to go about your everyday life.
Laurence Fox, that's not an answer to the question. Asking people to not get this vaccine, or indeed dissuading people and spreading, quite frankly, mistruths about the vaccine, saying that it hasn't passed clinical trials when it very clearly has.
Clinical trials.
It very clearly has. It's passed stage 3 clinical trials,
which is completed its full clinical trials.
It has completed its stage 3 clinical trials.
Stage 3.
Yes.
How many stages are there, Tom?
There are 3 stages in the approval process of any vaccine. That's how it works.
It has not completed full clinical trials, won't do till 2023.
It actually has. It has passed, and you can tell because we know that there are many different vaccines. Novavax, for example, has not yet been approved. Moderna has been approved. AstraZeneca has been approved. Pfizer has been approved. But there are other, like J&J and like Novavax, that haven't yet. There's the difference in terms of passing your clinical trials and not. What I think you're referring to, and what you refer to a lot online, is this idea of the post-trial study, which goes on for a couple of years after the trials. That's not part of those clinical trials. Those clinical trials have been passed, and I think it would be a good thing to stop spreading misinformation over this.
Right. As I said, I'll pass my tweets through you next time, and you can exercise my freedom of speech for me.
Excellent. Well, on that note, I'm afraid we have to leave it and go to a break. But Laurence Fox, thank you very much for coming and for this spirited debate. Cheers.
Thanks, Tom.